mission on earth is to imbue you with the necessary information to become the healthiest version of you. Through this knowledge, I'm going to be sharing with you in bits. I have watched the health of my mother become better. I've watched the health of my wife become better. I've watched my own health become better, and that of my clients all around the world. In naturopathy, you don't really need anybody to treat you directly per se. What we do is to orientate people on what to do by themselves. So we tell you to go to your kitchen, eat this, don't eat that, or go to the market, a food market, buy this, don't buy that, and cook it like this, or eat it like that, or eat this much quantity of stuffs like that. And now something actually inspired this very session. This right here. This right here. Now that's a WhatsApp chat, from a WhatsApp group. One of the WhatsApp group members just dropped her diagnosis for an endoscopy that she had carried out. So let me explain. The management of peptic ulcers is first diagnosed through what is called endoscopy. Now it's a camera test through the esophagus, the stomach, and duodenum. Now here a rapid urase test is done. It's known as the CLO test, whereby H. pylori is checked. They may also do a biopsy to ascertain if it's cancer cells, because they have similar outlooks. And this is very important. You need to see a doctor. That's what I usually do when patients come. You need to go see a doctor to ascertain this. She didn't have a Helicobacter pylori. And so I replied, asking her to celebrate, because it is uncommon for anybody around the world, no matter what part of the world you are, not to have Helicobacter pylori, a bacteria that causes peptic ulcer. The stomach has a protective layer which is comprised of mucus and bicarbonate, which neutralizes acids. It is secreted by the stomach mucosa. This protective layer can be broken down by medications such as steroids or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, as well as a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori, which is why I would rather you take drugs as a last resort. There are a few other things that could result to stomach ulcer, but the major cause is as a result of this infection. So how is this infection or this bacteria transmitted to the extent of finding its way into the gut of human beings? I'll tell you. Through kissing. We have to kiss our loved ones, but shit happens. When you kiss, you could also be transmitting this Helicobacter pylori if you're infected with it. Sharing of drinks through cups, or taking it directly from the bottle, as well as handshakes. A lot of people don't wash their hands, not even after they use the lube. Now, talking about kissing, a lot of the victims of this infection are children. Now, the reason why children are at the receiving end the most is because of adults who can do without kissing children, whether indiscriminately or for fun, or giving them pecks here and there. Well, but the truth is that you could be infecting this innocent child with a bacteria like this one that causes ulcer. And so, if you're an adult listening to me and you are an addict at kissing babies, I want to beg you, in the name of God, when next you want to kiss a child, can you kiss the child on their legs, please? Most of the victims who are children harbor this bacteria, and when they grow to a particular age, say 7 and above, or the flora in their gut gets depleted, the bacteria begins to manifest. Let me explain what I mean. Now, the region between your mouth through your esophagus, right inside, through your esophagus, down to your stomach, and then intestine, and then out through your anus, is actually called the gut. Now, in this gut is something called the microbial flora, or the flora. Now, this flora is just a college of bacteria, good bacteria or friendly bacteria, intentionally walled up along this gut inside by God Himself, so as to ward off or invade or conquer any invading alien bacteria from the outside that is not welcomed. All right, so that's the role of the flora in the gut. Now, problem is, due to poor nutritional habit, the gut system, or the gut rather, gets overpowered by the non-fibrous food we eat, or intake of alcohol or cigarette, that it gets depleted. And once it is weakened, the bad bacteria that were already there, for instance Helicobacter pylori, now has the leverage, the freedom to start showing off, you know what I mean, to start manifesting. Through that manifestation, it results to what is known as an ulcer. But truth is that it's not God's intention for it to happen like that. It's not God's intention for Helicobacter pylori to find its way into, let's say, the gut of an adult or even a baby, and still have a habitat to live. Because the good bacteria in this gut is supposed to kill it off immediately, like strangle it to death. But that does not happen. Why would it ever happen when you have children whom we have practically fed on foods like Cerelac or milk, milk that is not organic, milk from the market, or who were not breastfed exclusively, or who are being fed with Indomie and some of those processed foods. God took His time to create us wonderfully and fearfully. There's a verse in the Bible that talks about that. I really can't quote it as it is, but I'm going to be pasting it on the screen, I think. All right, it talks about how God took His time to create us wonderfully and fearfully. Now, it's good to meditate. Oftentimes, I talk to adults, especially the elderly, and they marvel at how they call it wisdom and maturity, or how wise and mature I am. And I'm not bragging, but it's a common commendation I get from elders. One of the reasons why I'm wise, like they say, it's not because there's anything special about me. It's because I meditate a lot. And if you're watching me right now, I want to admonish you to meditate as much as you can. Meditate on anything, any information that comes your way, any occurrence that you're marveling at, or you're trying to find answers to, or questions that you're trying to find answers to. Avail yourself to meditate on them. When you meditate on them, miracles could happen. Great things would come out of that meditation. And it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim, Hindu, or Christian. You can meditate on anything. I meditate on some verses from the Quran, and I'm not a Muslim. My journey into naturopathy or naturopathic medicine actually started as a result of meditation on this Bible verse. So I kept thinking to myself about the word fear. What did it mean that God created us fearfully? I thought about the word fear, and it has to do with God being careful, observing every detail, making sure He didn't make any mistake. When he was arranging our nerves, arranging the bones, fixing up the cells, He wanted to create a perfect being that would not fall sick. Now, that was the end product of my meditation. Because I told myself, if God had created me fearfully and wonderfully, wonderfully actually means, has to do with beauty. That means He wanted to make sure that we're beautiful, Then fearfully has to do with Him being careful to have a perfect end product that would stand the test of time and not yield to earthly pressures, such as sickness. So I told myself that it therefore meant that I was not supposed to be sick. And if at all I fell sick, then it isn't his fault, but mine. Because when he was making man, or when he created the earth, he created the earth and wanted it to be a complete habitat of the man, to be in our hands. He didn't want to um, meddle in our affairs. I've heard people saying or asking questions why God is allowing evil to perpetrate in the world, or economic disaster, or natural disasters, and all that to occur. To be frank with you, all those things, misgivings in governance, are a complete outcome of the decision or indecision of man. Because God had made us small gods to govern this world, to be in charge of our space or a larger space. If, for instance, you are in government or a politician of any kind, a larger space to govern. So whatever decision that you make in the long run, affects your life, whether directly or indirectly. And so, if you must be healthy, then it's in your hands to make that happen. You don't need to pray about it. You don't need to pray about it. I've never prayed about my health, but I've been enjoying an impeccable, undistorted health for many years, more than a decade. And so when God created man, while he was doing it fearfully, he thought about what will make man to be an overconqueror over diseases. And of course, he knew that he had to wall up the gut. So he made the microbial flora. And this flora is not just in the gut, it's on the eye, it's on the skin. I'm going to be talking more about that when we're going to discuss skincare. It's, in the hair, it's in the woman's vagina, it's in every orifice you can think of in the body. And so he thought it wise to feed this microbial flora with the necessary food or fuel that will keep it optimally functional. And so the way he did that was to infuse the environment with the necessary food or fuel that the microbial flora will feed on. This fuel is found it's found around us in the sand. When God was making man, when he was making the first man, Adam and Eve, he didn't envisage that we are going to be living in environments that is tied up, barricaded from dust or dirt, or from the grass. So now we live in palaces, far away from dirt and dust. It's one of the reasons why our microbial flora is not functioning, especially when we're kids. A child is supposed to grow up crawling on the ground, on the bare ground, and somehow having this bacteria from the sand interacting with their bodies and even getting into their bodies through the various orifices like the vagina or mouth, or into the bloodstream through the pores on our skin. While this is happening, there's supposed to be an interchange, between the body and the external environment. But this organic bacteria in the environment is actually supposed to strengthen our immune system, strengthen the microbial flora, thereby strengthening our immune system. It is supposed to occur at the early stages of our lives. But unfortunately, that's not the result actually. Any bad bacteria that had already invaded that space and had not been killed would start manifesting. It's the reason why so many diseases eventually occur, and of course, particularly the ulcer that we're talking about. But of course, I'm gonna do a video in the future where we're gonna be discussing ulcer deeply. Have you ever wondered why? I don't know about your grandparents, but my grandfather, for instance, I remember he used to marvel at how sick I was as a child and was always wondering what was wrong with our generation. Well, I grew up watching my grandfather. I've never seen him taking any drug. I watch him being very healthy, until, towards the latter part of his life. And that's because both him and quite, a lot of elders were born into an ecosystem that was as natural as it would be. So they swam in the river, they played in the sand, they roamed about the bush looking for this fruit or that to eat from. And so these fruits or seeds actually imbued and strengthened their immune system. And that's why most of them hardly ever fell sick or even take drugs like most of us do in this generation. Both my grandfather and I was told my late father too never had any sickness or had any cause. In fact, my mother said he always bragged to her of not taking, not even paracetamol at all, and not being sick until when he had bilharzia sometime in his life.